All right, what's going on, my people? I'm sorry, it might be a little bit noisy, but it's 90 degrees where I am, and uh, I gotta have the AC going. Gotta have the AC going. So I was doing some homework because I was just curious. I was like, as I've been doing research and seeing that test scores have been failing, and as far as urban areas, and a lot of black and brown kids have been struggling, and specifically Democrat-run cities. And I'm a person that was taught by my ancestors. My ancestors taught me that it's by any means necessary. By any means necessary means that you can't keep doing the same thing and thinking that that's the only thing that's necessary for change. By any means necessary. That doesn't mean that voting is the only way for change. That doesn't mean that protesting is the only way for change. That, like, by any means necessary. By all means necessary. But we've been stuck in a fixated or fixed area of time. We've glamorized the civil rights movement so much to where instead of expanding their ideas and the paradigms, we've actually just mimicked everything that they did, regardless if some of the things they did were successful or unsuccessful. But, like, instead of actually figuring out economically and politically what's good for black people, we just think if we do the same actions as some of our ancestors, if we simply just march and publicly defy, that is somehow making us equal to the civil rights leaders. But it doesn't. And a lot of that, for me, the civil rights had good intentions, but I mean, hell, we just needed America to enforce its laws. We just needed them to enforce the laws that were on the books. And we never should have had to need a special set of rules because we're American. We didn't need a separate set of civil rights because we're American. We're entitled to the same rights as everybody else, and we didn't need a special subsection of rights to make us feel that way. We just needed to be treated like citizens and Americans. That's what we needed. That's exactly what we needed because, the sad part is there were more businesses. Like, some things just don't make sense. We had more land when we had, when quote unquote civil rights didn't exist. People took more civil actions. People were more civil, not like how you act, but people would go to court, would sue, would, like, not just for BS, but if you did something wrong, or like after slavery, black people were very litigious because a lot of black people were barred for reading. The black people that could read were pretty much masters at law, math. So I was a generation of black people that were extremely intelligent. It's a generation of lost black inventors. But let's get to the Chicago thing. I said in the beginning of the title, Chicago spends, I want to say, about 10 times the amount of money on undocumented migrants as compared to what they do in after-school programs. And the reason I specifically did after-school programs is because Chicago has a violence problem. And if you're not finding or having positive things for these young men and women to do, or actually putting money into their education, then you're not really addressing the problems in Chicago. So I found it very funny that in the same 4-year span that they had $1.3 billion readily available for for migrant care, housing, healthcare, etc. They only spent $100 million in that whole time frame on after school programs. And I don't think that's, I think that should be showing us what the future is. The future is not in our kids. They have, my generation of kids have been financially neglected, have been intellectually neglected, and I see it. It's hard to know that, like, let's say in Oakland, California, only 10% of the kids can do math and only 20% of the kids can read. That means that 80 to 90% of the kids won't be able to fill out a job application because they can't read. That means that the quality of everything is going to go down. I mean, imagine you like to DoorDash food. Imagine that there's somebody preparing your food that can't read. That you say two extra slices of cheese or whatever, Gouda, or I don't know. It's just, now, how does it feel knowing that now you have to second guess, education? Then I seen an article about UCLA, and it talked about how they were basically, because of their diversity, equity, and inclusion program, that they were just trying to admit more women into the program, and as a result, they lowered the standard and ignored some of the standards to the point to where some of the women that, were in medical school couldn't even pass a basic medical exam because they were trying so hard to fill a quota. Then it degraded, and it didn't give them time to find the most qualified candidates, which quality, everything in life is quality versus quantity. And us trying to get, make the population at jobs parallel with the population of society, that's not right. Like, okay, so imagine, right? Let's say there's 13% black people. So forcing every company in America to have 13% black people in their company is kind of, it sounds good in theory, but then peel the layers back and look at the logic. Why doesn't that make sense? Because what if 13% of that would mean that an equal amount of black people would have to be interested in all of those fields. That's not free choice. You can't just force people to just fill jobs for quotas. It would be like, that's like saying now that, well, if all 15% of society is black, black people, then all jobs have to have 15%. Then you would have to break it down. All right, well, what if they took it further and said, all right, well, if 9% of black people are black women, then black women have to do 9% of every job that exists. That means, like, what if they turned around and said, okay, well, 9% of every garbage company has to have black women, and they have to be picking up trash? I mean, that's essentially like, if they can tell a company to have 9% black women or 8% black men, then what's the difference between them telling 8 to 9% of black men or black women that they have to work at that company? Like, telling a company that they have to hire a person is like telling a person that they have to work for another person.